Aloha kakahiaka and welcome to the Hoa Ho'olauna Aloha Lei Making Workshop, where we'll be doing a Vili style this morning. It is done at my home on Kamehameha Heights. My name is Euphemia Nagashima, and I only married a Japanese guy. I'm Chinese Hawaiian, and my given name is a Greek name, and I grew up with a nickname from my Chinese name, so people will call me Funi. Not Fumi, but Funi. So this morning, we will be doing the Vili method, which is known as a winding method. But before I go into that, I will explain about the material that we will be using. I will be using some local material which I have here in my yard. This is a lehua. This is one of the favorite material that lei makers like, and this is how it looks on a little branch. And to prep it, you would shorten the stem about 2 or 3 inches, and this little thing here you can use so you can cut it like this. And what happens, then you clean off some of these leaves, and if this is too much, you can always tear it off. It's better to have your stems longer than shorter because you can always shorten the stem, but if it's too short, it's hard for you to extend it. So you clean it up, and then you put it in a pile, and eventually it'll look like this, ready for you to use. So this is known as the lehua, a favorite of the lei makers here in Hawaii. Now this one is called the Dracina, tricolored Dracina. It grows on a bush, and it's something like a tea leaf. And you look it down here, you see this little bump here. What I do is I'll cut it off, and never mind if the tips are old, so I'll just cut it off because I'm not going to be using the tips, and I will show you how to use it when I actually start making the lei. What I like to do is I like to line up the material that I'm going to use. So I will use 3 material in one row. This is the lehua, this is the dendrobium, and this is the popcorn orchid. That's my first row. The second row is a carnation, the pinky carnation, the Song of India, and lacy panics. This one is the astromia, and this is another carnation, and this is the tricolored Dracina. And as I mentioned before, you can use the buds. I think, see, these are still buds, but you can use it. Even the buds that are not opened up, you can still use it. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, these 5 flowers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are all bought flowers. But you can use anything in your yard. And I have lots of stuff in my yard that I could use, like we did the last time we did this. So if you set things up like this, it makes it go a little faster and easier for you. Then you don't have to figure out, oh, what am I going to use next? So you can organize yourself. And when you organize yourself, things will move faster for you. I'll have several strands of raffia here, at least 6. And some of the raffia strips are thick, so I strip it in half. I will take 2 that feel about the same size, pull it up, and just remember that everybody teaches differently. And if you have an idiosyncrasy and you can manage it, by all means you can use it. So I will pull it up about a span high, and then I will put a knot. I'll make a knot, pull it tight, and this will be the tie for the lei. Or even if you do a lei po'o, a lei ai, or a kupe'e, you need a tie. And with this sticking up, you need not worry about it. Later on, I'll show you what to do. After that is done, I use a weight, or you can do it, you can hook it around your toe, or you can wrap it around something. And I'm going to what we call, I don't know if you can, we're going to hili this. And we're going to do it like you make rope. If you know how to make rope, you know how to heely. That's one of the lei making methods too. So what you'd like to do is get this even. And you have 2 strands. You can turn both strands in the same direction. Because I'm right-handed, I'm turning both strands to the right. I will cross over to the right, continue to the right, right. So just remember, you can do it to the left too, but you have to go in the same direction. And you will begin to see a nice tie. I like to do this because when you tie the lei, to me, the thinner the tie is, the easier it is to get between the material. So you can see how it is beginning to look good, and it finishes off the lei or the coupe very nicely. And when I get to the end, I will put a knot in it. So as you go along, so having this weight here helps me to pull back, and you can see how it's being developed quite well, I must say. And if you do one to the left and one to the right, it doesn't look like this, and you know that is not the right way to do it. But keep in mind, when you heely this, both strands are wound in the same direction, and that's what makes it look really nice. It finishes off. You won't have too much sticking out. You can braid this if you want to, but when you braid, you need a lot of tension, and it's not as smooth as when you heely like this. And like I say, I use my about span so that it makes it easier to tie. And when I do tie a lei, I like to tie it in a bowl. So right now I'm going to do the knot. Oops. I hope everybody knows how to do a knot. There we go. I'll take my clippers and trim it. So this finishes it off very well. Okay. So this is the raffia that I'm going to use. All right. There are 9 different kinds of material on the table. Now, what happens to these pieces that are sticking up? Not to worry. I just bring it down, take one strand, and vili this, so I don't have anything sticking up. So this is a shinobu. And like I said, I like to leave it on the stalk. What I do is, I like to start with my fern, and I will loop it. You don't have to loop it. You can make it stick out if you want, but I prefer to loop it. I'll use 3 pieces at the beginning, and this one I will put on the back. There's a right side and a wrong. This is the right side and the wrong side, so there's a difference in the front and the back of the fern. So the back of the fern I will put underneath. Now I can hold everything and put all the goodies on, but if you can't, just put the fern on and vili it. Now when you vili, at the beginning at least, you can go around it. So you can vili once. This is a lehua, and I showed you how I cleaned it. This is the Dendrobium Orchid. It has a stem, and you decide which way you're going to put it. So I put it here, and this is the popcorn orchid. Now, because it's so spacey, so to speak, I will put several together. Oops. So here I have my first cluster of flowers. It's like a little bouquet. When you look at it, you can, like a boutonniere. So I will use 3 pieces of material. Now work at the edge of the table, and your first wind, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to go to the right, but if you're left-handed, you go the other way. I'm holding close to the base of the flowers. So I will have my raffia go close to the base, pull it over to the left, and pull from underneath, and I can wind twice. 2 times is sufficient. You don't need to wind all the way down. I would suggest that if you feel you must wind more, at least 3 times, because you really don't want to have a lot of raffia being shown. Okay, continuing, again, this is a shinobu. I loop it, and why do I put it on the side? That's actually to hide or cover up the raffia. And you will find that some of the material, will break off, and it's okay. There's a certain amount of wastage anyway. Now this is a carnation, and it smells. And there's some in the bucket. If you haven't seen it, this is how it grows. It has a long stem. Again, I put it here. This is the Song of India, and what I do is I will bend it, because I'd like to have the yellow part sticking up. Or you could use it as a whole thing, and you could have things sticking up like this too. It's up to you. It's up to you. And this is Lacy Panics. This is a good filler. And you can use almost any kind of leaves, that are small, or you can make it smaller. So I can squish this all together. And here's my second row. So again, the raffia slips off my thumb, which is close to the base of the flower. I pull from underneath and give a second wind. And the second wind is a gradual wind that comes down. Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot to put it on the back. And that's okay if you forget, because there's a lot of things that I'm, telling you about. But I can continue on my way. This is an astromia, and this one you need to be careful because it's sort of soft. And so this is where I would like to put something else on it. And this is another carnation. And this is the tricolor Dracina. Oops. And I will loop it this way and give it a little squish here, because I want it to stand up a little bit. Again, close to the base, turn it to my left, pull from underneath, and pull tight. Now if this gets in the way, all you have to do is trim it off. Now this completes all of the material that I have used. So what happens next? I will then repeat. I will repeat, and I will go with the popcorn orchid. Oops. Okay, when I back this, sometimes it's a little thin, so I take another piece of fern and I'll put it on. Add it to make it a little thicker, and put it on the back. Now these are the 9 material that I have used. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to repeat. I'm going to use the popcorn and put it here, and then the lehua here, and then the dendrobium. So after a while you will begin to see a pattern, and if you decide on how you're going to use your material, you can line it up according to how you would like, so that you don't have to say, oh, what am I going to use next? You can just go down the line and pick. And sometimes you might forget something, and it's okay. Nobody's going to know except you. So this is what happens when you put it on the back. You don't see the raffia. And this sits very nice on your po'o, or even around your neck. It's cooler. Otherwise you get all the bumpy stuff. So here we go. I'm going to repeat this. This is a popcorn orchid. And you want it to come up a little bit. So here's the lehua and the dendrobium. So again, the vili is close to the base of the flower. and a gradual wind. Now, if you think the lei is wiggling for you, you can just straighten it up. It's not a problem at all. Because some people feel that the lei gets out of control, but you can control it. Again, I put my fern on the side, and it makes it a lot easier for me when I leave it on the stalk. Now, what you also need to do is you really need to eyeball. You can eyeball your width. We work on newspaper a lot, and you see these columns. If I had turned the paper the other way, I can use the column as my guide. And if I think it's too wide, see? So, now some people can make very narrow leis, and some can be big, and it depends on who you're going to give it to. If, for instance, if you'd like to have a lei made for a gentleman, you really don't want a narrow lei. You'd like something manly. So, one of the things you would like to do also is, when you wind, and I'm sorry I didn't mention it earlier, is to pull tight, at least on your second wind. Because if you don't pull tight, things may fall off. Okay, like I told you, sometimes it's a little thin, and I want it to be thicker, so I'll add another piece to it. Like this. And I'll put it underneath. So, see, it's beginning to cover. And I will continue on my way. Again, see, I'll do a little crimp. And you can make things stick up as much as you want. This is the astromea. And I know I cut some buds. You can still use the buds. The buds work very, very well, so don't throw it away. Use it. Okay, so you see I'm beginning to repeat. So this is here and this is here now. And as I finish the lei, you can begin to see a pattern. Now eventually, the raffia will get shorter. So what happens? Well, you don't have to tie a knot or anything. You take another piece of raffia, a longer piece than this, slip it underneath, a little piece on the left, bring it to the center, and you vili it in. And one time is sufficient. So here you have an extension. And only at the end do you do a knot. In between, you don't have to do a knot at all. So I can just add this to it, and then I will continue on my way. When you gather your material, just keep in mind that it needs to be watered. You need to water it so that it's fresh. Most of the material, you can run it under water, wrap it in damp newspaper, then put it in a plastic bag, and you can put it in the refrigerator, and it'll be fine. Some material don't take water that well, and one of them is the puakene flower that we have. If and when you see that flower, it has a nice smell, and you can run it under water and drain it. Okay, I'm going to be running out of raffia, so what I'm going to do though, because I have long pieces of raffia here, I'll just pull from there. And that's an easier way. And we have found, as lei makers, we have found that that's a lot easier to work with. Okay. So I'm coming to just about an end, I believe. Okay. And like I said, oftentimes there's some wastage. And also the other important thing is, when you're doing lei making, the cleanup the cleanup is very important because there's lots of what we say is opala, rubbish. And whenever you do something like this, you make sure you clean up. So I'm ending with that piece of raffia. So I'll take another piece because I have these long strands. I'll just take it and vili it and lock it in. So that's the only time you have to do that. So let me see. I'll put this around my head. Oh, I'm just about finished. Now, depending on the material you use, sometimes the lei can be a little heavier. So that's another thing that you might want to consider when you select your material. And if that's all you have, the heavy material, it's okay. Now, I remember that one of the things I do remember when going to Japan is that you have that beautiful miniature maple tree, and they're all over. You can use that, and it has nice points to it, and you can squish it, and it'll give you a really nice effect. Let's see. I did put something underneath. Okay. There's the estremia. And again, I'm going to put a little fern over it so it doesn't cut it. Oops. And what you can do, oftentimes, you can squish your material. Make it smaller. So, okay, 1, 2. Okay, this is where I come to the end of the lei, and I'm going to show you how I end it. I will still put the fern on the side. And still put the backing. Oops. So what do I do next? I will take pieces like this. I will loop it. And this is the end of my lei. And this is something I prefer to do. So what happens? With this tie, I will take it over and do a half hitch. Oops. Pull it tight. Real tight, and then I turn it over. Okay, this is the half hitch. Then I will I'll cut this shorter, take another piece, get it close, it's close to the base and in line with the other one, and pull it tight. And sometimes it'll break, depending on the raffia. And then the one that I was viling with, I will tie in. And so this makes it tighter. Now, if you wanted to get it a little tighter, I would take another piece, and you can feel it. Then I cut this excess off. And what I'm going to do is do another piece, because I would like to do this and pull it real tight. Real tight. And again, trim this off. So these are the two pieces left, and that's going to be the tie. I will trim this off. to make it nice and neat. Turn this back over, and that's why I use a weight. This is a Quartz Bouquet I got many years ago from when we were in Mexico. And again, I use my span. I just use my span because I don't need the whole thing. I will spray this. And even up, one strand is thicker than the other, so I'll make it even. And then I will heely this so that it looks like the front, the one in the front. Keeping in mind, turning both of the strands in the same direction. And because I'm right-handed, I turn it to the right. And when this is finished, it'll look like the one in front. And when you're using thread, you just use a single strand of thread. And actually, when you use a thread, you can leave it on the spool. It would be much easier. So I'm coming to the end, and again, I will make a knot. I think everybody knows how to make a knot. You know, you make a loop, you pull it through, and this is uneven, and you trim it off. And like I said, I'll just check to see that. Yeah, and sometimes the fern moves, so. And sometimes when you're wearing the lace, something might fall out, but you're the only one that's going to know. So here you have the leis po'o.
Right.
Or see, it can see to be a leis a'i. And I prefer a leis a'i to a leis po'o. So this is a session on the vili method, one of the 6 Hawaiian lei making methods. And I hope you all enjoyed it, and will do it and keep practicing so that you become a good lei maker. Aloha. I spray it, and then of course I spray the lei too, the back and the front. And I like to leave the lei open. So what I do is I will make it smaller, turn the newspaper, wrap it, and just fold it over, and there you have it. And then I'll spray and put it in a plastic bag. And like I was telling Kaseko, because
Line nawe pono ke ia ke po I pai ke one hiru la me lai sala ka he e a hage mai mana we pono ke ia ho ko ko ho ko ko me kan ko
アロハ、ジャルパックハワイの笹澤です。
佐々木です。
フラフォーラーのアロハはジャルパックが主催し、オフィシャルツアーでは現地ジャルパックハワイがお手伝いをさせていただきます。
安心安全にお楽しみください。お待ちしております。アロハー。